Hey there, welcome back to the show. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to extend a special invitation for you to join me in our upcoming 7-day Conscious Love Challenge. This challenge is a powerful opportunity for us to work closely together for an entire week where I will guide you through some of my signature processes and practices that I have used with my clients for years. Many of these come directly from my Inspired Love program. And over the course of this week, I'm going to guide you in a personalized experience with the support of an engaged community behind you. At the link in the show notes, right below wherever you're listening to this episode, you can learn more about the challenge, see the outline of the week, and figure out if this is something that you might want to participate in. The best news of all is that right now, our early enrollment special is available where you can save $100 on the cost of the challenge. So make sure to check that out and grab your spot while early enrollment is still available. This challenge is one of my absolute favorite programs to lead, and you will be blown away with the profound openings that you create in just 7 days and the incredible connections you make in this wonderful, supportive community. So click the link in the show notes right now. Make sure to grab your spot while early enrollment is still available, and I'll see you next week so we can jump in and get started. Lots of love, and thanks for being here. Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler on with you today. As always, pleasure. Happy to be on with you and got a powerful conversation lined up today. Today, I want to explore the idea of when being happy and single becomes a barrier to love. And we're going to look at the 7 underlying beliefs that keep us trapped in a somewhat happy, somewhat fulfilling, but also somewhat disconnected single life. If you were with me last week, I was touching on the idea of punishing yourself because you haven't found love. And that is maybe the opposite extreme of what we're going to talk about today, right? And so there's a certain version of us, and for those of you who resonate with today's conversation, you may remember this as an older version of you. There's a version of us that was so concerned with the idea of finding a partner that we were so trapped in the need to find someone and to meet someone that need was actually sucking the life out of us, right? That we weren't able to enjoy any aspect of our lives because the need to meet someone and the need to be in a partnership was so overwhelming that it literally disrupted our joy in every aspect of our lives. And that resonates for a lot of people. A lot of people are stuck in that. But today we're going to talk about almost the opposite extreme of that. And for many of you who are going to resonate with today's conversation, maybe you've outgrown that version of yourself, right? Maybe there was an older version of yourself that was so caught up in the idea of meeting someone and falling in love and finding a partner that it literally took over your entire life and you couldn't enjoy anything. But then you outgrew that. Then you got over it and you learned how to be content with yourself. You learned how to be happy. You learned how to invest in yourself and find hobbies and interests and things that matter to you and to develop meaningful friendships and to get connected with your family or get connected with your passion or whatever it was. But you found ways to make your single life deeply meaningful and deeply fulfilling. And then maybe it happened so subtly that you didn't even recognize it. Maybe it just kind of creeped up on you. But little by little, as you learn to stop focusing on meeting someone, on finding someone, on getting into a relationship, and you started focusing on the things that matter to you and the life that you love and the things that could bring you fulfillment and creating a joyful and happy life without needing to find someone to feel complete. You might have subtly gotten caught in a different trap where you became so comfortable being single that you stopped engaging with intimate relationships in a meaningful way. And what you might notice, if you resonate with today's conversation, what you might notice is that every time you dip your toe in that water, if you open up a dating app, or if you go out on a date with someone, or if you even think about it, or if you even, try to meet someone in any kind of meaningful way, you get intensely triggered. It brings up a lot of stuff for you. And sometimes you might feel that when you choose to engage with that part of your life in any kind of meaningful way, it brings you back to the old version of you that you thought you outgrew. And if that happens, if you resonate with that, then there's something really important to identify here. It's that the happiness and the fulfillment that you experience in your life as a single person, it's not that it's not real, but it's that it's only a half truth. It's only halfway real. Because what you've done, yes, you've found a way to be more content, to feel more whole, to feel more fulfilled. And that is a win. And I don't want to take that from anyone because that is a real win. But in order to do that, you've had to exile a part of yourself. You've had to disown a part of yourself that longs for connection, that longs to be seen and held and loved by someone. You've had to disconnect from a part of yourself and invalidate a part of yourself. And maybe you view that part of yourself as weak or as needy or as desperate or as disempowered. And maybe there's a fear underlying the surface of your life that says, I don't ever want to go back to that. I don't ever want to be that person again. And so, yes, now on a day-to-day basis, you feel more content. You feel happier. You feel more fulfilled. You feel more whole. And that's a real win. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. That's a real win. But underneath that win is also a subtle fear. If I truly engage with that part of myself, if I truly engage with that part of my life, I'm going to become that old version of myself. Maybe the version that didn't have boundaries. Maybe the version that let people walk all over them in relationships. Maybe the version that couldn't be happy because they were always preoccupied and concerned with their relationships. And so while day to day you feel happy and you feel content and you feel fulfilled and you feel worthy, there's still a part of yourself that is operating from fear. There's still a part of yourself where you're not really experiencing your wholeness because in order to have the happiness and contentment that you have in your life, you've had to exile and disown another part of yourself. And so it's not truly rooted in wholeness. You're still fragmented. Because here's the reality. And this is true whether you're single and seeking love. This is true whether you're in a long-term relationship, whether you're married. This is just the true nature of relationships. No matter where you stand in it, relationships are deeply vulnerable. They're deeply vulnerable. The part of you that craves connection, that craves love, that attaches to people in a deep way, that wants to be intimate, that wants to be seen, that wants to be held. That is a deeply vulnerable part of yourself. And when we need to feel in control. When we need to always feel secure, we end up disowning the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. And here's what I would suggest today is that true security is not the absence of insecurity. It's the ability to be with my insecurity and not lose myself in it. That's a paradox, right? We tend to say that I want to get rid of my insecurity and I just want to feel secure all the time. I just want to feel whole. I never want to doubt myself. I never want to be afraid. But if you have to disown parts of yourself to feel that, then you're not really whole. You're not really secure because there's still something that you're afraid of. There's still something that you're avoiding. True security is the ability to sit with the insecure parts of myself, the parts that might be needy, the parts that might crave connection, the parts that might lay in my bed at night and feel lonely and long for someone to be there and hold me. And to be able to be alive and available to that part of myself without making it mean that there's something wrong with me, without feeling less than because of it, without feeling weak as a result of it. Right? The ability to be with the most vulnerable parts of ourselves without judgment. To hold that part with the same amount of love and honor and respect that I hold the strong, powerful parts of myself with. That's true security. That's true mastery. And so if you're in a position right now, I just want to name this for anyone who's in this position. If you're in a position where you're in your life and 90% of the time you feel happy, you feel confident, you feel fulfilled, you feel strong, you feel secure in yourself. And maybe you have an internal story that says, I'm good on my own. I don't need anyone. Or maybe you say it'll happen at the right time, but I'm not worried about it. But you have some kind of internal justification for why there's not a partner in your life. I'm working on myself right now. I'm focused on other things. I'm working on my career. There's some kind of internal justification that you've excused not dealing with that part of your life. And then there might be these moments where you long for it. There might be these moments where you long for depth, where you long for connection, where you wish to be met in that way. And when those come, maybe they make you feel weak. Maybe they make you feel desperate. When those moments come, maybe you judge yourself for them. Maybe you criticize yourself for them. Maybe you think that when that happens, it means that there's something wrong with you. And so you try to avoid those parts of yourself. And 90% of the time, you're living this really awesome, really fulfilled life. You have meaningful connections with friends, and maybe you have a career that you love, and maybe you have family that you spend time with. And there's so much of your life that is so good and so full and so fulfilling. But day by day and week by week and month by month and year by year, you move through your life and nothing significant is happening in your love life. You're not making any meaningful connections in that sense. You're not getting into any meaningful relationships. You're not having any meaningful experiences. Maybe you go on a date here and there, but nothing ever takes off. If you're in that position, I'm going to suggest this. The reason nothing meaningful is happening in that area of your life is because you're not truly available to it. And I'm going to take it one step further and say, not only are you not available to that from other people, you're not available to that part of yourself. You've stopped engaging with that part of yourself because you don't like the way it feels. to be present with that part of yourself. Life feels so much safer, so much more secure, so much more comfortable. You feel so much more powerful when you just pretend that part doesn't exist. And you say, oh, it'll happen at the right time, in the right place, with the right person. I'm not worried about it. I'm not stressing about it. I'm happy in my life right now. And yes, that's true. But I've noticed a distinct difference between the people who are happy in their lives right now and making connections and the people who are happy in their lives right now, but never really make a meaningful connection. And the core difference is that I'm not available to that part of myself. So I want to address the idea that it will happen when you're not looking for it. I'm sure we've all heard that, right? It's one of those annoying things that people say, right? It'll happen when you're not looking for it. When you just live your life and you're happy and you're not looking for it, it's just going to fall into your lap. It's one of those really fucking annoying things that people say. And it's not 100% false. It's not 100% false. So I think it's important to say that. Like, again, going back to the other end of the spectrum that I was talking about last week, where I'm actually punishing myself for the absence of a partner in my life. On that end of the spectrum, the need for it is so over encompassing and so desperate that we actually push love and connection out of our lives because everybody who engages with us feels that need and it feels heavy and it feels like pressure and it feels like there's no space to get to know each other. And they're like, this is a lot. I need to step back. And that's real. So when people say you'll find it when you're not looking for it, that's what they mean. They mean you've got to let go of that. They mean you've got to find freedom from the incessant need to meet someone and just get comfortable living your life. But that's only a half truth. And here's the nuance. You've got to let go of that need and get comfortable living your life while still being connected to that need on some level. And I know it's a paradox, right? How do you let go of that need and stay connected to it? There's a way of holding attachment loosely. Not like a tight grip. Like if you imagine holding water in your hand, right? And when you try to grip water in your hand, all the water falls out through your fingers and you can't hold it. But if you imagine cupping your hand and just letting the water sit in it, and you can actually hold the water in your hands. It's kind of like that. You hold attachment loosely. You don't dissociate from it. You don't exile it. You don't disconnect from it, but you hold it loosely. It's alive. It's present. It's real. You haven't disowned that part of yourself, but that part of yourself is also not the most encompassing storyline in your whole life. It's not the lens through which you view your entire life, but it's present. And when I think of how to describe this, like I just think back to my own experience when I was dating and I was single. It was always present for me. The idea of meeting someone, of connecting, of hooking up, of going out, of dating, of making love, of getting into a relationship. It was always present. It just wasn't the most present thing. So let's say when I was single, I was involved in this personal development training company. It's actually, I ended up meeting my wife through this company, but I was one of the trainers and I was at the time getting my education and training to become a trainer. And so I was co-facilitating these seminars and I would be in these, rooms with maybe 100 people or, every weekend I'd be doing these trainings and I'd be facilitating pieces of the training and learning from the other trainers. And so I was in a community where there were a lot of people, a lot of opportunities for connection. And when I was there, I wasn't desperately trying to meet someone. It wasn't the overarching theme in my life at the time, but it was like a subtle undercurrent. I wasn't disconnected from it. I was emotionally available to it. And if I was there and I saw an attractive woman, or there was, maybe one of the staff people I was working with or something, and we made a connection, I might say, hey, do you want to grab a cup of coffee next week? I was always in touch with it. I was always available to it. There was never anything in me that shut that down. But I had also learned to be present in my life without letting that be the guiding thought or the guiding factor. I want to extend a special invitation for you to join me in our upcoming 7-day Conscious Love Challenge. This challenge is a powerful opportunity for us to work closely together for an entire week, where I will guide you through some of my signature processes and practices that I have used with my clients for years. Many of these come directly from my Inspired Love program. And over the course of this week, I'm going to guide you in a personalized experience with the support of an engaged community behind you. At the link in the show notes, right below wherever you're listening to this episode, you can learn more about the challenge, see the outline of the week, and figure out if this is something that you might want to participate in. The best news of all is that right now, our early enrollment special is available, where you can save $100 on the cost of the challenge. So make sure to check that out and grab your spot while early enrollment is still available. This challenge is one of my absolute favorite programs to lead, and you will be blown away with the profound openings that you create in just 7 days and the incredible connections you make in this wonderful, supportive community. So click the link in the show notes right now. Make sure to grab your spot while early enrollment is still available, and I'll see you next week so we can jump in and get started. Lots of love, and thanks for being here. It's like being emotionally available without being emotionally disempowered. It's holding that most sensitive, most vulnerable part of myself without thinking that that sensitive, vulnerable part of myself defines my entire identity. And yes, and I've often shared about this, there were a lot of moments of loneliness. Times when I'd be invited out with friends and everybody at the table would be in a couple and I was there by myself. Times when I would be alone at my house on a Friday night and, maybe my friends were out with their girlfriends or whatever, right? And I would just sit there and feel the emptiness and feel the loss of that. And so I was available to this part of myself. I was available to the moments in which that was present, but being available to that did not mean that that defined my entire life, my entire experience. And I could show up to a training or show up to a yoga class or show up to my community or whatever I was doing, and I could be present there with the people there and be focused on what we were doing and be engaged in whatever was happening there, while still being available to, hey, there's an attractive woman. Maybe I should talk to her. While still feeling that longing for connection when it was relevant. So when we say you'll find it when you're not looking, it doesn't mean that you never look. It means you do other things too. It means that looking isn't your full-time job. But you're still available to that part of yourself that wants to look. And so I want to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of today's episode. And what I want to talk about today are the 7 maybe most prominent reasons that we disconnect from that part of ourselves. When we shift from always looking to never looking. When we stop being connected to the part of ourselves that is available for connection with others. And so there are 7 common stories. There might be more, but today I'm going to address maybe 7 of the most common. Stories that we tell ourselves, stories that live under the surface, stories that justify disconnecting from that part of ourselves. And underneath each one of these stories is a vulnerable feeling that we're protecting ourselves from. So I might say something like, I'm really happy, and if I invite in a relationship, it's going to disrupt my happiness. We might say something like, I always attract emotionally unavailable people. We might say something like, I'm too busy with work. And these stories sound justifiable. But what they're really doing is guarding me against an experience of vulnerability. They're guarding me against something that feels so uncomfortable that I don't want to deal with it. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with one of the most common ones. This is especially if you're growth oriented, especially if you are somebody who's doing the work, you might relate to this one. What do we tell ourselves? We say, I'm just working on myself right now. I'm working on myself right now. I'm not interested in a relationship. I'm not interested in getting involved with someone because I'm working on myself right now. And what does that do? It gives us the pride of feeling conscious, of feeling noble, of feeling intentional, of feeling spiritual, of feeling awakened, right? I don't need a relationship because I'm just working on myself right now. That's got a really nice ring to it. It sounds really, really good, right? But what's going on under the surface of that? Now, look, I think working on yourself is wonderful, and I want to say this. I think being intentional and growth-minded and spiritual, those are wonderful, wonderful things. And when you're single and when you're in a relationship, like no matter where you are in your life, that's one of the best things you can do. Right? Be intentional, be growth-minded, be spiritual. It's one of the best things you can do, whether or not you're in a relationship. But here's the thing. It's not mutually exclusive. Being growth-minded and working on yourself and being spiritual, that doesn't mean that you can't also engage in a relationship. And so when we say, I'm not dating because I'm working on myself right now, or when we justify the absence of connection or justify no attempt to make a meaningful connection by telling ourselves, I'm working on myself right now, what you're doing is you're dressing up your avoidance in a really pretty costume. What you're really saying is opening up to that part of myself, getting on dating apps, going out on dates, meeting people, engaging in that part of my life brings up something that is so uncomfortable for me that I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen to podcasts and I'm going to read books and I'm going to take workshops and I'm going to do all this work on myself. And I'm going to let doing that work take the place of getting out in the real world with real people and making connections. And not just exploring relationships with others, but exploring relationship with myself. And maybe that's the most important thing. I was talking to one of my students in my program recently, and she was talking about how she's happy in her life. She feels good in her life. She's doing all the right things in her life. She has friends and family and connection and hobbies, and she's fulfilled, and she loves her life in so many ways. But this part, the vulnerable part of being intimately involved with someone, has just always fallen flat for her. And she says she never meets people in real life. When she goes out here or there, she never makes connections with anybody. And she said when she gets on dating apps, it just destroys her confidence. And I know a lot of people relate to that. I know she's not the only one. I know it's so common. Dating apps can be savage. Let's acknowledge that, right? Let's name that. Dating apps can be savage. And she's like, I tried to get back on the dating apps and I did it for a few weeks and it was just completely disheartening. It was completely demoralizing. I hated every moment of it. And so I quit. I got off of them. And this is what I want to name here. And I'm not saying everybody needs to use dating apps. There are other ways to meet people, maybe better ways to meet people sometimes. But in this instance, this is what I want to highlight, is that her engaging with the dating apps was activating something within herself that day to day she never deals with. Day to day, she never confronts it. And we talked about what it was, and we got down to it, and she said, I have a fear that people don't see me. I have a fear that I'm not seen. I have a fear that no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I put myself out there, people just don't see me. And when I get on dating apps, it highlights that feeling times 100. When I get on dating apps, the feeling of not being seen is magnified. And here's the thing. Under the surface of that, the feeling of not being seen is always there. The feeling of not being seen is underlying all of her experiences, all of her relationships, all the time. It's a part of her identity. And it's not even a bad thing. It's just a little inner child, insecure part that needs to be given some love, that needs to be given some attention. It's not wrong that that feeling exists. It's not something she needs to cut out of herself or destroy. It's just a part that needs to be received with some love and some compassion and some acknowledgement. And when she gets on a dating app, and I know I'm not just talking about her, I'm talking about everybody here. When she gets on a dating app, what happens is that little inner child, insecure, fearful part of her gets magnified. It gets highlighted. The feeling of not being seen that is underlying all of her experiences all the time is now magnified. And the opportunity there is to relate with it. The opportunity there is to say, hey, I can use this dating app to activate a part of myself that when I'm busy in my life and I'm doing all the things that I'm doing all the time, and I'm caught up with my friends and my family and my work and all the things I do, that part gets sidelined. That part gets exiled. But when I open up a dating app, that part comes right to the forefront. It comes right to the surface. And what do we say? That makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with that. So dating apps are bad because they make me feel like shit. Well, how about this? How about the dating app is a platform to activate that part of yourself so that you can form a new relationship with it? So that the part of you that is normally exiled and disregarded can become forefront and present in your life. And you can learn to love yourself through that. You can learn to sit with the discomfort of what gets activated and say, hey, I see you. I'm not going to hide from you. I'm not going to run from you. I'm not going to guard myself against you. I'm not going to make you bad and wrong. I'm not going to pretend you shouldn't exist. I'm actually going to let myself be available to the part of myself that being on a dating app activates. And this is the magic that happens when we do something like that. You see, it might not even be about being on the dating app and meeting someone through the dating app. It might be about meeting yourself through the dating app. And then all of a sudden, you go back into your life and you go to a class or you go to work or you go wherever you go, and you meet someone. And suddenly you feel like you're available for connection in a new way. Because instead of running from the discomfort, you ran into it. Instead of cutting something out of your life because it made you uncomfortable, you opened yourself to it and became available. And I want to go back to the idea that I'm just working on myself. Sometimes working on yourself doesn't mean listening to another podcast or reading another book. And by the way, I want you all to keep listening to the podcast. So I'm not saying stop listening. But what I'm saying is sometimes working on yourself doesn't mean just collecting more information on an intellectual level. Sometimes working on yourself means standing in the fire, standing in the places in your life that are at the edges of your comfort zone. And sometimes comfort does not equal happiness. Sometimes comfort does not equal fulfillment. Sometimes comfort equals numbness. It equals protection from being fully alive, from being fully embodied, which, let's just face it, is sometimes really uncomfortable. In fact, I think it's worth stating here that being alive is an inherently uncomfortable experience when we're really present, when we're really alive, when we're really engaged with ourselves, when we're really engaged with our life. Being alive is an uncomfortable experience. And this is why we numb ourselves with drugs and alcohol and social media and shallow relationships and all this. There is an addiction to numbing ourselves to try to avoid the discomfort of what it feels like to really be alive in your body. And if dating apps make you uncomfortable, good. That means you've stopped numbing yourself and you've started getting in touch with something real. Maybe that's what the app is there for. So, to the story of I'm just working on myself, let's call it what it is: a diversion, a distraction, a justification for avoidance. I'm not going to date until I'm ready. I'm not going to date until I'm healed, meaning I'm not going to deal with the discomfort until it's no longer uncomfortable. And here's the sad truth: it's always uncomfortable. You think being on a dating app is uncomfortable? That's not nearly as uncomfortable as being involved with someone for 3 months and being emotionally available to them and emotionally attached and hoping it's going to go somewhere while having no clue where the relationship is actually going to go. That's way more uncomfortable than being on a dating app. And even that is more comfortable than being married to someone and being in love with them and living with the reality that they might die at any moment. Because love is inherently vulnerable. The moment you open yourself up to that part of yourself, you become vulnerable. And so we numb ourselves to protect from that. But that's not what being alive is really about. Let's talk about the story, I always attract emotionally unavailable people. Let's talk about that one. I always attract emotionally unavailable people. And there's a story that it's outside of me. It has nothing to do with me. I'm ready. I'm open. I'm available. I want love. But every time I put myself out there, I attract someone who's not ready. And that story gives us some validation because we get to boost ourselves by saying, I'm ready. I'm available. I want it. When in reality, the emotional unavailability that we experience from others is often reflecting our own. We tend to think of people who are anxiously attached as people who are always leaning in, and people who are avoidantly attached as people who are always leaning out. Here's the really interesting thing about that. Once you cross a certain threshold in relationship, anxious people become avoidant and avoidant people become anxious. It's really interesting to see this happen, that the anxious person says, I want love, I want love, I want love, I want love. And the avoidant person's like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm ready. And then finally they get to a point where the avoidant person steps in and says, I'm ready. And they open up themselves to that vulnerable part of themselves that they were always terrified to access. And all of a sudden they start to become anxious. And once the anxious person experiences the availability of that avoidant person, Now they become avoidant because they're so comfortable with chasing and pursuing that when someone is actually available for them, they don't know how to handle it. If I'm not chasing anymore, someone might actually see me. If I'm not performing anymore, someone might actually get to know who I am. Am I good enough for that? Am I lovable enough? And so often when we consistently attract emotionally unavailable people, we have built a strategic pattern that keeps us engaged, but safe from ever getting deep enough where we could actually get hurt. And we get to justify our experience by saying, I'm so available. I want love so much. I give and give and give, and people just take and take and take. And yes, there's the little ache of every time I've given something to someone and they pull away. And yes, that hurts. But it's a familiar pain. It's a pain that we know. It's a pain that is tolerable. It's not the same as the pain of being fully available, fully seen by somebody, fully received by somebody, and then having them decide that I'm not enough for them. And so we guard ourselves from that experience. And we say, I'm ready for love, and everyone else is emotionally unavailable. What about this one? I'm too busy. Too busy with work, too busy with kids, too busy with my life. I'm too busy to date right now. And we prioritize other things in our life to justify the fact that we're not dealing with perhaps one of the most important areas of our life, our human connection. We've all heard this story told a million times over, right? The person who spent their whole life working, the person who spent their whole life succeeding and accomplishing and doing everything and staying busy all the time, just to get to their deathbed and look back and say, I missed out on everything that really mattered. We've heard that so many times, it's a cliche. So why does somebody do that? Why does somebody spend their whole life on everything except for the thing that is most important? Why does somebody give all their time and all their energy to everything except for the things that really, really matter? Because we don't want to feel what it feels like to be vulnerable. Raising my kids, that's something I can control. Showing up to work, building my business, that's something I can control. But really being emotionally available, falling in love, developing a deep connected partnership, putting my heart in someone else's hands and not really knowing what they're going to do with it one way or the other, that is completely out of my control. And yet, it's maybe the most real way to feel alive in your whole life. And so we let the fear of being out of control, the fear of being emotionally available, the fear of being attached to someone, the fear of unrequited love, we allow that to keep us trapped in what is safe and predictable and within our scope of control, rather than meaningfully engaging with the things that matter most in life. Most people underneath it all, they crave a deep, loving relationship. It's almost a universal human desire. And I know a lot of you might say, well, I met a lot of people that are only looking for something casual. No, they're not only looking for something casual. They're afraid. And they protect themselves by saying they're only looking for something casual. Yes, there might be periods of our life, especially when we're younger, where we're not in that place yet. I'm not saying that that never exists. But especially as we get older, especially as we start to look at what is really meaningful in our life, it's almost a universal human desire. Here's a good one. I just have really high standards. Nobody lives up to my standards. I had a question come in my community recently, and it was a really fascinating question because what she was asking was, how do I know if someone is a good partner? And then she proceeded to say, I need someone who has this and 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 the other thing and the other thing and the other thing, and someone whose life circumstances aren't like this and they aren't like that. And she just went on and on with her whole laundry list of things that she needs to know that someone is a good partner. And I read that question, I sat back and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? This is someone who just doesn't want to risk being hurt. And she creates this incredible standard for who someone needs to be, an impossible standard that no real heart beating, breathing human could ever really live up to. And here's this impossible standard that somebody needs to be able to aspire to for me to be able to open myself to them. And it comes off as empowered, and it comes off as discerning, and it comes off as I know what I want and I'm not going to settle. But underneath that, there's just a simple avoidance and a simple protection that says, I'm going to make sure my standards are so high that nobody's ever going to get in. And that way I will stay safe. And we get to feel good about it. We get to boost our ego with it. We get to say, I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for. I'm not settling. And we deny the fact that human relationships are messy. And I'm not saying we should have no standards. I'm not saying that we should settle for someone who doesn't care or isn't invested or doesn't make us a priority or doesn't show up for us. But that doesn't mean it won't be complicated. That doesn't mean it won't require intense, vulnerable communication. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be periods in a relationship where our heart is out on the line and we don't know where it's going to go, and we're risking heartbreak in a very real way, walking out on the skinny branches of life, not knowing where it's going to go, and trusting and having faith. That's the process to falling in love and creating a truly meaningful relationship. And anything less than that is simply a control structure. It's a way of exchanging real intimacy for safety. And look, there are people who get married and stay together for 50 years within a control structure. And they might coexist, they might co-parent, they might have the perfect life on the outside, but when you pull back the curtain and you look what's happening inside, there's no depth, there's no intimacy. They don't really know each other. It's like you buy my bullshit and I'll buy your bullshit, and we'll call that a relationship. And we have a safe realm of what we're willing to share and experience with each other that never reveals too much of either one of us. And that's how we live. And sometimes we take that to such a degree that we never partner with anyone because nobody lives up to the unrealistic standard we've set to protect ourselves. Let's talk about some of the more vulnerable stories we tell ourselves. Sometimes we avoid a relationship because we think we're not attractive enough. We think we're not desirable enough. We think we're not good enough. And we tell ourselves the story that people don't choose me because of how I look. What's underneath that story is the fear of being seen, the fear of being truly seen. And so we tell ourselves, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not desirable enough, I'm not what people want. And we isolate and we hold back and we don't engage. Often, when we live from this story, we even make ourselves less attractive than we could be. We tell ourselves, I'm not attractive, and then we become not attractive. And this isn't about having the perfect body or the perfect face or the perfect anything. This is about dimming your light, hiding yourself within a story that I'm not attractive when you could be attractive. And you choose not to be because you don't want people to see you. And I want to name something here, because perhaps the deepest human fear that we all have is the fear that we're just not worthy of love and belonging. There's something that gets wired into all of us in childhood and as we grow up in this world. A deep sense of self-doubt. A deep fear that if somebody really knew me, if somebody really saw me, they wouldn't like me. We all have that, right? It's perhaps what makes us human. And so we all justify that feeling with different stories to protect ourselves from experiencing the pain of that. So I say, I'm not attractive. And if I say I'm not attractive, it's like I decided it before anyone else had the chance to. I just decided I wasn't good enough, so I could own that before anyone else had the chance to. I'll beat them to the punch. And if I just decide it for myself, I never have to experience the pain of having someone else think that about me. And these are the kinds of stories. These are the kinds of stories that keep us trapped in a reduced version of ourselves. These are the kinds of stories that limit the intimacy. And yes, they come from real wounds. But here's the thing. You could choose to engage anyway. And in choosing to engage, you could heal that part of yourself that holds that belief. In choosing to open yourself up to that, you could awaken something inside of you that lies dormant. This is why I always say healing doesn't happen in isolation. You're not going to tell yourself a story that I'm not attractive enough, I'm not desirable enough, and hide out in isolation. And then read a bunch of books and listen to a bunch of podcasts and suddenly break through that belief. The way you break through that belief is by saying to yourself, you know what? Maybe I'm attractive enough. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But here's the thing. I'm not going to let that story define me anymore. So I'm going to start showing up as though I am attractive enough. And some people might find me more than others. Some people might like me. Some people might not. But I literally am not going to be defined by that belief. I'm not going to let that limiting story tell me who I am. Perhaps one of the most painful stories that we tell ourselves is that there's just something wrong with me. That I'm broken in a way that makes me fundamentally unlovable. Relationships just don't work out for me. And after we've been through some painful experiences, Maybe been through a divorce or 2 divorces or more. Maybe been through an abuse situation, narcissistic abuse, something like that. After we've been through some stuff in our love lives, we start to believe there's something wrong with me. There's something about me that's broken. There's something about me that makes me fundamentally unlovable. But just like all the other stories that we've touched on here, it's simply another justification for avoidance. It's simply another justification to not engage in a meaningful way. Because here's the truth. I should say this. This is the truth about human beings. We're all broken, and none of us are. Meaning we all carry pain. We all carry wounding. We all have these weird little dysfunctions that are especially going to show up in a relationship. We all have a fear of rejection. We all have a fear of not being good enough. We all carry this. This is the nature of being human. Whatever story you have that makes you think you're so freaking special in your dysfunction that nobody could ever love you, I promise there are a million other people who have the same story. And some of them are held back by it, and some of them are not. But here's the thing. None of us are so freaking special in our dysfunction that we're unlovable. And so, yes, we're all broken and none of us are. Because yes, we all carry wounding, we all carry pain, we all carry fear, we all carry shame. And yet at the same time, none of that fundamentally changes who we are and what we're worth. And this is what I really want you to take away from today's episode, is that there is nothing that could truly make you unworthy of love. And if you're keeping yourself isolated from relationship through any one of the justifications that we've touched on today, or any others that we didn't touch on, that isn't true. That isn't real. That is a story that you're telling yourself to justify the fact that you don't want to be uncomfortable and put yourself out there in a meaningful way. And I'm not saying this, let me say, I get it. It's scary. It's sometimes painful. It brings up things within us that we don't want to deal with. And I'm not shaming anybody for this. I get where it comes from. I get why we do it. But what I want to really land here is your life is going to pass you by. You're going to miss out on the realization of some of your deepest dreams. And you're going to look back one day and say, why didn't I just go for it? Why didn't I just try? Because here's the thing. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you feel some pain. And this is maybe the secret that we rarely acknowledge. We go through so many extreme things, extreme attempts to protect ourselves from pain without realizing pain is a part of life. And you know what? I can experience pain and I can live through it. Yes, if I'm vulnerable, I will get my heart broken sometimes. Yes, if I put myself out there, I will experience rejection. I will get my hopes up and be let down and experience disappointment. Yes, this is all par for the course. And at the same time, Along the same lines that I would experience rejection and disappointment and heartbreak. Along those same lines, I might also experience the realization of some of my deepest dreams. And you can't have one without the other. So the question becomes, are we going to live our lives protecting ourselves from pain? Or are we going to live our lives pursuing our highest joy? Knowing that one comes with the other. You see, you can't have your highest joy without the pain. But if you protect yourself from the pain, you also cut yourself off from your highest joy. And so the only choice is whether to be fully alive, fully human, fully engaged, fully vulnerable, or to numb yourself out and disconnect. The choice isn't between joy and pain. The choice is between being alive or not. The choice is between living the fullness of your human experience and soaking up all it has to offer, or numbing out to survive it. That's the choice. And so I want to go back to where we started, right? For those of you today who have found a sense of happiness and contentment in your single life, and you feel really good about where you are, first I want to say that's beautiful. That's beautiful. But if that sense of contentment has gone beyond contentment and it's become comfort, if you've become so comfortable in isolation that you never meaningfully expose yourself in a vulnerable way, this is my challenge for you. Ask yourself, what am I guarding against? What am I protecting myself from? Maybe this means that you go and you open up a dating app. And you don't open a dating app even to meet someone. If you meet someone, that'll be a happy side effect. But maybe you open the dating app to start exploring the part of yourself that wants to be vulnerable in connection with another person. Maybe you open up the dating app to start exploring the part of yourself that is afraid to confront engagement and rejection and being liked or not liked, or being swiped on or not swiped on. You don't open it to experience someone else. You open it to experience more of yourself. Maybe you say hi to someone at the supermarket or at the coffee shop or at your gym or wherever you go. Maybe you start opening up for possibilities and connection in your life. And you don't do it to get something from someone else. You do it to be more fully alive within yourself. And if something happens with someone else, that's just a bonus. Because if we were meant to live our lives in isolation, there would only be one of us on the planet. This whole human experience that we're living in is literally about relationship. That is 100% of the game. Relationship. It's not about how I experience myself without anyone else. It's about how I experience myself with others, in relationship with others. What are my boundaries? What are my concessions? What do I open myself to? What do I close myself to? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? When do I make myself vulnerable? When do I not? And these are not things that we can experience in isolation. The deep conscious partnership that I truly think is at the heart of almost everyone's deepest desires, it's not something that comes through luck. It's not something that comes through control, through manipulation, through orchestrating, through comfort. It's something that comes through relational mastery, through emotional availability, through vulnerability, through deep, honest, real communication, through our willingness to stay in the right situations and walk away from the wrong ones. And there's not a single person who has that kind of love that hasn't also walked through the painful equivalent of that. Because both are on the same path. Avoidance is a different path altogether. So thank you for being with me in today's episode, everyone. I hope this touched something. I hope this awakened something. I hope it inspired you to take a risk, to let go of your comfort in exchange for something scarier but more fulfilling. Because we can be comfortable in isolation. We can be complacent in isolation. But we cannot be fulfilled in isolation. Fulfillment is something that we inherently experience in relationship with others. So thank you so much, love and blessings to all of you. Thank you for being with me today. I'll be back with you next week. Lots of love. I'll see you then. Take care. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.